I'm delighted to welcome you to the fourth webinar of our 2026 series. My name is Dan Stanke, and I teach in the Water and Wastewater Technology program at Thompson Rivers University. Alongside a team of experts and co-creators, I oversee the online help center for BC small water systems. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge that Thompson Rivers University campuses are located on the traditional lands of the Tecumloops to Secwepemc for the Kamloops campus and the Tahur on the Williams Lake campus within the Secwepemc Ulu, the traditional and unceded territory of the Secwepemc. All right, Thompson Rivers University, as part of a partnership, hosts an annual free webinar series and courses designed to provide technical information, resources, and tools to all small water system owners and operators, including Indigenous small water systems. These webinars, courses, and the website cover topics such as treatment, regulations, operations, maintenance, and water quality. The Online Help Center is committed to assisting small water systems across BC in implementing a multi-barrier approach to drinking water. So can help ensure safe, potable drinking water for communities in compliance with government regulations. Our free webinars are scheduled every 2 months in 2026. If you are an EOCP certified operator, each webinar will count as 0.1 CEUs towards your certification. Upon completion today, participants will receive a certificate which can be submitted to EOCP. Sorry, that you'll be getting your completion certificate tomorrow, not today. We also invite you to try out our online free courses designed to educate water systems operators on the website. Now, for today's webinar, it will feature a 1-hour presentation followed by, excuse me, a 30-minute Q&A session. If any questions arise during the presentation, please note them in the chat and we will address them after the presentation. Our topic today is asset management for small water systems, and it's presented by Dean Scovill. He is a seasoned professional in the water industry with over 30 years of hands-on experience and leadership. As an accomplished instructor and curriculum developer, Dean has educated and mentored countless water and wastewater operators throughout BC. His teaching is known for being highly engaging, interactive, and grounded in a real-world application, earning him widespread appreciation from his students. In 2012, Dean joined Thompson Rivers University in the Trades and Technology section as a sessional instructor and has taught courses in the water treatment in distribution. Dean holds a Bachelor of Technology in Management and is a certified public health inspector, as well as a member as the Applied Science Technologists and Technicians of BC, where he holds a civil designation. Dean resides in Langley, BC, and continues to contribute to the field through instruction, consulting, and community outreach. So with that, Dean, please take it away.
All right. Welcome, everybody, on this glorious day. I'm sure across the province here, everybody's experiencing some nice warm weather, and across Canada and beyond. It's a delightful for you to join us, and we're going to talk about asset management plan for small water systems. As Dan just mentioned, it'll be an hour presentation till noon, and then we'll have a Q&A session for half an hour after that point. So any questions, put them in the chat for Dan, and we'll address them a little after. So what are we going to cover today? Why asset management matters for small water systems. You know, we're going to look at the why does it matter. We're going to look at the 5 core questions of asset management. And thirdly, building an asset inventory, assessing conditions, and identifying critical assets. This is basically, we're gonna talk in simple terms of like using a spreadsheet. What do you have at your water system, all your components, listing them. We're going to talk about that in the presentation. And also, really to make this real life experience, we're going to look at a couple case studies, one a proactive versus a reactive management scenario. And also got a little treat for you today because I'm actually remote off site. I'm going to share that with you. I'm at one of the provincial park campgrounds, and it is on a boil water advisory. We'll share that with you and as we go through the presentation. We're going to look at the life cycle costing, capital renewal schedules, and funding strategies. Again, I just want to stress these are high level points. We're not going to get into nitty gritty, but just kind of where to look. Staying in compliance and handling common challenges also is going to be discussed. And finally, key resources, funding programs, and your action plan. So why does this matter today? Well, you know, if you think of the BC's smallest systems are the most vulnerable type of water systems in the province, and it probably I can speak probably it can share this across Canada as well too. There's a cost involved. A lot of these were installed many years ago, and now their components, i.e. pumps, i.e. pipes, i.e. reservoirs, are starting to show their age. Maybe some of them are reaching the end of life, and simply just to go to patchwork, which a lot of these small water systems do, it gets very expensive. And I don't have to tell anybody here, if you have to be reactive and fix this thing right now, get that component, it can cost 2 to 4 times more than if you were to just be proactive and actually have that part available. You know, actually look for cost savings. So aging pipes, and also the other thing that leads to the aging components of our system is that we have all the good intentions operating the system, but then we got to boil water advisories because the system is not, we've got intrusions of contamination, microbiological contamination somewhere, maybe the reservoir, for example. But so surely the fourth point here is looking at good asset management protects public health and your budget. So being more proactive is a better cost saving than actually being reactive. So what is asset management just in plain language? Well, the way you define it is asset management is knowing what you own. Okay, so this is my water system. I know the components, its condition, and what it costs to keep it working. Because there's a cost for everything. When you think about, it's not just installing the new, say a pump, but it's to operate that pump, maintain that pump, and service it, and also to replace it once it's reached its end of life. So there is a full spectrum of cost, which we'll get into a sec here. And everybody out there is crunched for dollars, and that's why we have limited resources. But our goal is the more we know about the system and better be proactive with it, knowing my components of my system, my pumps, my plumbing, my reservoir, for example, will set you better off than not knowing. So unfortunately, the thing here is we call this run to fail to proactive planning. Proactive planning is not reactive. It's not like, oh, we got a leak, we got to fix it right now. Well, we got to do that anyway. But if there's something you're aware that potentially can fail in the next 6 months or a year, man, we should be getting that new pump, for example, as opposed to, oh, it failed. Oh, everybody's without water. Oh, crumb. Now we need that pump now. And it's going to be very expensive, possibly, to get that ordered and delivered and then installed, right? And what if it happens on the long weekend? You could imagine that the cost of trying to get somebody out in doing that. So being proactive is really the way to go. So reactor repairs cost more, and as I mentioned, happens at the worst time, and there's definitely risks of service interruptions. Proactive planning is scalable to any size system, even with one operator. So it's planning ahead. So let's look at the core questions. What's really important? of these core questions. And these core questions, I'm just going to list them right. You see them right here on your screen. They come out of Asset Management BC. You can see the link right there on the slides. This will also be available later through the chat as well as the presentation for this link. And this is where I've pulled these core questions for asset management. It's a great literature here. What is the current state of my assets? And I'm going to go through each one of these. I'm just going to highlight them right now. Number two, what is my required sustainable level of service? Basically, what do I need to do to maintain the operational nature, functionality, maintain those assets and longevity? Thirdly, which assets are critical to sustain performance? I think everyone probably would agree with me. A pump is a critical component because without it, you're not moving water. Versus a valve, yeah, a valve is important, but it's not going to stop your water flow to your customer necessarily. Fourthly, what is the minimum life cycle costs, right, of these components? And fifthly, the final one here is, what is my best long-term funding strategy? Now, as a former drinking water officer, I can tell you from all the inspections I've done, small water system, the number one thing that comes up to, Dean, that's a great idea. I'd love to upgrade my reservoir. The plumbing, I get it. I know it's leaking. I'd love to do all this stuff. I hear what you're saying, but I don't have the funding for it. And, you know, I tried with the provincial government, I tried with the federal, and they're only applying to the municipal level, not at the small water system level. Well, I've got a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel for you. I mean, as I know it's not a perfect funding system out there for core funding for people that are making for grants. But I got a little light at the end of the presentation. I'll give you some direction of trying to navigate those waters. But the thing right now is, and there's other ways too, is to know what you have. Because if the funding becomes available, you have to do your homework. We have to be able to share what we have in a spreadsheet or saying this is what I have and this is what I need, as opposed to my system sucks and it doesn't work and I need money. That really doesn't sell it. So doing asset management is really important. So let's break these questions down. First one, what do I have? Very basic question. What do I have? Doing an inventory. Basically, I always say to people when they're starting this, you know, if you're familiar with an Excel spreadsheet, or just jot it down right at the beginning, just write something down. Start small. Just list what you know, like what you familiar with, what you have, and then you keep building your list out. It doesn't have to be done in one day. So include your source. Is it considered an asset? Your well, your like a deep well, shallow well, or surface water intake. What treatment do you have, if any? Your storage, your reservoir, your pumps, your valves, your pipes, and even if you have a water meter or a flow meter, just list those things. Record the location, the size, what material it's made of, especially pipes. Is it PVC? Is it iron ductile pipe? Install date, if you happen to know the date when it was installed, is really good. And the conditions it's in that you're able to see, or that you're aware of. What condition? Is it poor? Is it fair? Is it good? If you don't know what you have, you can't really manage it, right? And I, again, post another link, Small Water Systems BC, which is basically the framework for this, this webinar. Has a lot of good information to pull from there to help you with this right here. Even if you can find some photos, you know, photos are great, because if you're explaining, say, your pump, you got a picture of it, that's great. A picture of the plate on the pump. It'll probably give you the date and the pump capacity and all that. Make it easier. Just record drawings, pictures, whatever you can find. Step by step, building your asset inventory. So walk through the system, listing every component section by section, gathering existing records, like I say, drawings, permits, invoices can help too, because if you had something installed 5 years ago, it'll tell you the details of what component that was. Your maintenance logs. As a former drinking water officer, I can tell you that one thing I looked at when I did a water system inspection was, okay, can you show me your maintenance logs? Excuse me. And they'd be in the pump house or in the office, and you know, recorded on a spreadsheet. These records are gold. You know, if you get lots of them on a clipboard and they're kind of curling on the end because you got like 5 years of it, make sure you get that scanned in your computer or recorded. Don't lose that information, because all that information, you spend a lot of time recording, like pH of the water, the turbidity, the chlorine residual, the temperature. It's all there. It serves as a good historical reference. Assign a unique ID and location to each asset. Now, again, you don't have to get fancy on this. You can number them, you know, this is the pump, number one, you know, the water intake, you know, and so forth. Record the install date, size, capacity, material, even the manufacturer. Why is this important? So down the road, if you're kind of looking at replacing a similar component, it's nice to know who manufactured this, right? Store in one place so everybody can access. Everybody's working on your system. Usually, if it's a one operator, you know, you got probably an owner of that system should have access to it as well. So it should be familiar. Now, this is a step-by-step example here of a spreadsheet. It's from an Excel spreadsheet here, and we do have a link there from the Small Water Systems BC, and we can post that later on the webinar here so that everybody can, you know, use this as an example. Instead of you just starting, and you don't have to reinvent the wheel. We've already created something here, and this is something that's just, again, available for you. Now, I'm going to show you what it looks like with an example on the next slide. And here you have a reference number if you want to just, you know, they just went 1.1 here. The asset description, this looks like the water main. So it's a 3-inch or 75 millimeter diameter PVC water main. What's the, how long is this thing? From my information or from my records or my knowledge, it's about 330 meters because we got units. Most of us in today's world, we use the metric system. If you're one of those folks that still like the imperial, well, then put this in feet. Year installed 1989. And again, this is just a fictitious component here that our asset. The exposed part of the system I saw looks good. You know, line's still in good shape from 1989. You can either go poor, fair, or good, for example. Service history, I do annual flushing because that helps with the water quality and any sediment in the lines. I use a far end standpipe or a hydrant to flush from. So my current age in years, and again, this is like taking today's date, for example. You can see this is dated, right? So, you know, they did this in 2013. So obviously it'd be 2026. And it'll, you know, you'd subtract 26 from 1989. Of course, you're going to have a more than 23 years. Expected useful life, 60 years is stated for this product or this PVC pipe. Now, where did I get that information from? The manufacturer. So if it's a PVC water main, I know who installed it, or I can just get hold of the company of a PVC manufacturer. I got a 1989 3-inch diameter PVC main. Here I'm talking imperial. It should be 75 millimeters. And oh yeah, 1989. Yeah, that's a common pipe that was used. Yeah, it's good for 60 years. Okay, get it from the manufacturer. Adjustable useful life. This is basically if I looked at the pipe and I'm going to go and manufacturer saying 60 plus or minus, you know, 4 years, then downgrade it to 56 years, right? And then useful years left. Again, that's taking today's date. It'll just say you've got 33 years left or you've got 25 years left. So why is this important? It's so that I plan for replacement in the future. Okay, so according to this data right here, I've got 33 years, useful years left on this line before it starts deteriorating, according to the manufacturer, that it's not worth to repair the leaks. It's time to replace. And this gives me a roadmap of where to go, or in terms of savings, that I'm going to need to replace this in the future. So question number 2, what service do I need to deliver? Oh, sorry, I'm just going to go back one slide. Sorry, I apologize. I was just giving the example of water main. Of course, you put your pump down here, you put valves here, you put your chlorine injector here, you can put your reservoir. You list, that's all your assets right there. Okay. Second question, what service do I need to deliver? Well, I think we got to deliver water. I mean, that's what we're here to our customers, right? There's a level of measurable promise to your users. Examples, water quality standards. Okay, I've got this great system, or it's an older system, and it delivers good quality water from my deep well. I'm going to maintain that well, so I continue with water quality. I should maintain a minimum pressure too. Why is that important? Because if pressure falls below 20 psi, I got a problem here. Because now with any potential leaks in my lines or potential cross connections from a customer, I can draw in contamination in my lines. So that's a number of 20 psi minimum I've got to maintain. But for customer satisfaction, most people are happy around 35, 30, 35, all the way up to 80 psi, because we don't want to go too high, because then you got great pressure, which can damage service connections. I got to tell you a quick little funny thing that happened here. I used to work for a large municipality in the Lower Mainland of Vancouver, and there is an area within, okay, I'll tell you which municipality. I work for the city of Surrey. They have 26 pressure zones. Well, if you're not familiar with a pressure zone, it's like different elevations. You've got people that live in a higher elevation, people live in a lower elevation, and it's up and down. It's not a flat prairie area. It's up and down because of the geology of the area, or geography of the area. And some people in the lower elevations tend to have higher pressure, and people in higher elevations tend to have a lower pressure. It's just the way the system's set up. But I remember this one particular area on a middle or to higher elevation, people are complaining the water pressure is low. So they managed to put in a new PRV, we call it pressure reducing valve, and it was able to increase the pressure to that particular zone. And the field staff said to the engineering staff, I think we better do this really slowly instead of just going, from say 30 psi to 40 psi, because people got old service connections, old plumbing. And the engineer, oh, no, we're okay. We should be able to go right to 40 psi. It should be fine. So to the operational staff, we're saying, hang on, we got to do this slowly because we have a lot of experience in the field, right? Anyway, engineering staff went ahead, cranked up the pressure, and all of a sudden we had these phone calls. My water service just blew, because they had old, say, copper plumbing or old polyethylene type service, and they're just brittle. And when you crank up, even 10 psi can cause some damage. And yeah, so there have to be a little bit of repair work going on. So yeah, when you increase pressure, we got to make sure our service connections are tight and are not old, right? Again, that's knowing your assets. We have to meet the requirements, which are the Drinking Water Protection Act and regulations. That's the minimum service requirements. In other words, I got to provide safe drinking water. In other words, water free of microorganisms. That's why you do your water sampling every week or 2 weeks, depending on what system you're set on. And service levels guide every assets in the operation. The better we have a handle on this, the more appreciative our customers are, because they got good pressure, the water quality is good, we're not on boil water advisory. I really like, they care for us, right? The other thing is to consider is what assets are critical when you're evaluating, right? You're kind of scoring this out. Just off the top here, I mentioned at the beginning, what do you think is more important? Do you think a pump's more important than a valve? Well, I'm going to tell you, pump goes down, you ain't delivering water. I think a pump is probably more critical than a valve. So you have to kind of weigh them. Which are the ones that I should sort of score higher, like more of a risk? Is I maybe give a pump a 5 and a valve a 2 if it fails? Did you see where I'm going with this? When you list your assets, you got to score out which ones are most important if there's a critical failure right now. Because I can't deliver water, that to me is a critical failure. A valve I can work on. Yeah, it's leaking. It's not the greatest setup, but I can work on that, right? I got more time. A pump, I do not have time. And if it goes down over a long weekend, you got to get emergency services in there. They're going to charge you 2 to 4 times higher than if it were being planned, a planned event versus a failed event. So here, what do you think of this slide, this picture right here? This is actually one of the inspections I did many years ago. What's the likelihood of failure? Well, this is actually a shallow well, and you can see they've got a light there. I guess it's to prevent from freeze up in the winter. I guess it's kind of a little heat system. What do you notice about this? I mean, you know, do you think we're going to have bacteria contamination of this shallow well right here? You see a pressure tank right here, pressure switch, you know, wiring here, and an open well. Isn't that great? And one of the things, and you're probably shaking your head too, going, yeah, I wonder if how many mice are floating in there. Gee, I wonder where the E. coli comes from. Any guesses? You know, looking at this, yeah, identified the acids, but what this would be a failure right here. This is not in good standing, but I tell you, with the minimal amount of work and cost, I probably can fix this up pretty good. What do you guys think? I bet you our listening audience today have people looking at they already got a framework in their mind of how I'm going to fix this. You know what? You're probably right, because it's a lot better than doing this right now. So this is a high risk scenario. And again, how did I find this? I mean, obviously I did an inspection, but if you were to go through your system and looking at all your assets, including your wellhead, you're going to know that it's either a fail, it's average, or it's really good. Really good would be a sealed wellhead here with no openings here for potential contamination. So question 4, what's my minimal life cycle cost? Well, it's really comes down to the cost of my assets from purchase to disposal, right? There could be a cost of removing that asset, right? Disposing of it as well. So really 4 components are acquisition, like purchase of the component, operation, and maintenance of that component, like pump, for example, renewal, replacing it in the life, and maybe the pump is good for 15 years, and then I got a budget for a new one, and then ultimately disposal. So there's a full cost right here. It's not always the cheap, you know, and this is what I've seen also too. And you know what, and I'm sure most of you would probably want to buy the best component you can afford, right? But the cheapest is not always the best over time. The cheapest, yeah, it works, but how many of you had bought cheap and going, the maintenance sucks on this because I really can't do maintenance on it. It's difficult. It's acting up. Boy, if I bought the one that's a little more expensive, it would be a lot easier to maintain, and maybe I get more lifespan out of it. If I can maintain it, I can get more lifespan out of it, and hence that would cost me less over the long run than more. Because if I got to replace this as opposed to, say, another component that was a little more expensive, it's going to cost me more. So we got to put the mindset on, we've got to think of the full life cycle cost, right? Don't think of the false savings we're at the beginning here, because it's going to cost us more in the long run. And for those that think, gee, tomorrow's tomorrow, don't worry about it, the next guy will have to look after it. Well, I'm the next guy. Crap, now I got to deal with all this stuff, and I don't have a budget, and everything's failing, and it gets pretty ugly when we have to do major upgrades when we could have just done a little bit over time, and you know, there's been less burden for everybody. So what is my best long-term funding strategy? So every asset will eventually need renewal. We know that. Nothing lives forever. Even a reservoir is going to age out. It might be 50 years, it could be 60 years, it could be whatever, right? 100 years, say in a majorly well-built system back in the day. Look at it, if you look around in our capital works projects out there in our local communities, you know, bridges age out. They get to point that, hey, they're not earthquake proof anymore, and we got to replace it. You know, we're seeing that all gone, and they're really, really, really old. Everything ages out eventually. 3 main funding sources. You got user rates, you got reserve funds, which a lot of people struggle with because I have to keep paying out, right? My funds keep going down. Grants and borrowing. So those are the main sources of funding. A funding strategy matches money available to renewal needs, say, over 10, 20 plus years, you know, into the future. It's good to have a reserve fund that I'm putting away a little today for tomorrow. And I can cost out each asset, because remember on the spreadsheet, you saw that how many years left. Well, I better fund this, has got 30 years left. Okay, let's put a little bit aside for this, what it's going to cost me into the future. And you got to factor in inflation as well. Avoiding this question leads to emergency borrowing and special levies. Exactly, right? You know, everybody's happy when they got to shell out the big cash. Think of people that are in strata developments. Well, you can't have a funding according to the strata legislation. You have to have at least 25% available funding and renewal. And again, I'm just pulling that out of the strata legislation. If there is an emergency and you deplete that, you're going to have to go to all your owners and say, hey, we got an emergency situation. We need a well pump. We need, some emergency things to make the system run. We're going to have to assess each property owner $10,000 this year. Ouch. So if we plan this out in the future and do little by little, it's not so much all at once, right? Condition assessment, rating how healthy each ad is, as like I'm saying, scale 1 is like new, condition 5 it's failing. Again, you do that for all your assets. Consider the age, maintenance histories, performance, visible wear, manufacturers, and also get the manufacturer's lifespan. Right? They'll tell you how long that particular component will be, before it ages out. It might go a little longer, but if you take care of it, it might go a little longer, right? That's why you get that adjusted timeline, because if we've not taken care of it, then we're going to decrease that longevity before it ages out. So we update the ratings every annual, right? That's why I have a spreadsheet. It's easy to do. Just keep updating it. It's ongoing. It's not a fixed spreadsheet. It is a fluid spreadsheet. You keep updating the information as it comes available and reviewing it every year. So yeah, let me show you a couple case studies from BC, from British Columbia. Lessons from proactive versus reactive approach. And then I have a surprise at the end after the reactive approach here. Case study number 1. Here's a proactive asset management plan. The village of Salmo, BC, and if you can see the little map insert right here, if you're wondering where it is, we've got a little arrow right there. If you know the BC area a little bit, Creston is more to the east. This is the Kootenays over here. Alberta is just a little further over, so you kind of know it. This is the U.S. border, so it's southeast of the province where Salmo is. And this actually came from the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, the FCM, sustainability, and they reported on the Salmo project here, and that's kind of cool. So the community of Salmo built a full asset inventory and condition assessment and not just the water system. They did it for everything: roads, sewer system, water. I know this presentation is focused on the small water system, but you can do an asset inventory on all your other infrastructure, and they included in this community a sewer system as well, right? And roads. Train 70% of the staff in national asset management practice, really what it is. How do you do it? And I think you kind of get the idea of that spreadsheet I showed you earlier. Just start listing your inventory. That's a start. And what is the result? What did Salmo learn from this? They had a better budgeting, fewer surprises, asset management embedded into daily operations. So it's the mindset. They learned from past practices how to make it better. And really, believe it or not, the reason this is reported through the Federation of Canadian Municipalities is that they are like a shining example of what other communities can do in saving costs. Yes, I said it right, saving money, because they planned ahead versus reactive approach. They're taking a proactive approach, and that did them very well. So you can look them up under the Federation of Canadian Municipalities. It was done in 2018. I mean, it's a few years from now ago, but good on them. I mean, they're taking the initiative. Now, here's the reactive approach, case study number 2, and this kind of spans across the province here. Several, and I'm not just saying BC mobile home parks. They could be campsites. They could be a restaurant, on a single system. They're on long-term boil water advisories. Why? Well, they just don't have the budget. They're just looking at this whole thing and throwing their hands up in the air. I can't, you know what? For the life of me, I don't know where to start. What do I do? I got a boil water advisor going on here. You know, everyone just boil the water to be done with it. The pump works, whatever. But do we think that's a good selling feature for a new customer? Say, before I join your park as a resident, I kind of look at this going, you know what? I'd like to look at another park that's done a better job to invest. I don't want to go to a park that's not investing, you know, and caring for their customers. You know, when we say boil water advisory, they're finding bacteria in the system. And you know what? Does there, you know, like, it's boil water advisory is not just for drinking, it's brushing your teeth, right? So it becomes really of a nuisance when you think about it. So one owner spent over, I mean, we're talking systems are aging out here where they're old and just haven't kept up with the maintenance and operation. Maybe they're doing a little maintenance, but their pumps are wearing down, their reservoir is outdated, their pipes are leaking. And again, how can we make a best business case if funding comes available to my operation, grants or even a loan? Is I got to make a business case to that provider and say, hey, I've got, you know, I've got 300 meters of water main that is 60 years old and it's breaking down, it's leaking, and you know, and I've got a boil water advisor for the last 10 years, and this is my reservoir. You got photos and basic, you know, how much does it really cost us to put this together, an asset management plan? It's our time. It's digging into the facts that we know, get information, and I go to present this to a potential funding body, and guess what? I might get awarded a grant. I might get awarded a loan, a low interest loan, but nobody's going to give me money if I haven't provided them something. And that's where asset management comes in. You know, there is hope here. If some of you are kind of in the boat right now and throwing your hands up in the air and it's just, you know what, Dean, it's not going to work. You know, and I've heard this from operators, small water system operators over the years. It's just not going to work. I just don't have the funding. And I felt like saying to them, you know, well, can you start with just inventorying what you have? Just inventory what you have. Just start and build it from there. It's not going to cost you anything to do an inventory. It's just time, photos, get some information, put it together. And I'll tell you, that'll be in a far better standing than just going to a potential grant funding organization and saying, hey, I've been, this is boil water advisory for the last 15 years. I'm frustrated. Can I get some money? They're not going to give you money. They're only going to give money if it's available for that situation, if I've done some homework and showed them what I'm planning to do, showed them what my asset ages are. So what are the lessons here? Reactive fixes without full life cycle planning don't solve root causing. So what am I planning to do? I want to see improvements on this water system. I want to replace that pump. I want to put in a UV system. You know, I want to install that. It's going to cost me. I looked into a UV system, you know, and it's going to cost me, say, $2,000 to set that up, right? And then the sensors and put a little chlorine afterwards, or just put a chlorinated system in because I got good well water quality, you know, and it's going to cost me $5,000 to set that up, right? But I have to start somewhere. I have to do a little digging. So there is some hope. The reactive isn't the way to go. It's being proactive. You know, it might take you know, several months, a couple of years to put this all together, but at least when something comes available, it's something to consider. Now on to the surprise. This is an extra that I added into the slide presentation. Is I'm currently, actually, believe it or not, I'm broadcasting from the Okanagan Lake Provincial Park Campground. It's called the North Campground in British Columbia. This is a park I've been coming to since I was a little guy. My parents brought me here years ago, and it's a beautiful place. It's a gorgeous place in the interior of the Okanagan, and it's located in the southern interior. It's about 390 kilometers northeast of Vancouver. So if you know Vancouver being on the west coast, the southwest corner of the province, this is about 300 kilometers northeast of Vancouver. It's a dry semi-desert, well, it is a desert belt, beautiful area, A lot of vineyards, you kind of get the idea, and a beautiful lake. It's a terrace campground. So you have 80 campgrounds that are in a terrace. You have a view of the Okanagan Lake. It's this is kind of showing you what one of the campsites looks like right here. You're all thinking, man, this looks like a gorgeous place. It is a gorgeous place. In the lower right is a picture of the lake here. In a desert setting, it is, you can't ask for more. It's gorgeous. Unfortunately, look what I hate to show you this photo right here. Here we go. Here's this is a new structure they built, and you're looking at it. This is a great asset. This is they've added showers here, so they've got a couple showers for 80 campsites. It's better than nothing, and they're warm showers. They got a propane tank that heats this, and it's awesome. But if you look closer at one of the signs right here, I'm gonna zoom in here. Look what we got right here. It says boil water notice. Boil your water for a minimum 2 minutes. Wow, you've got this beautiful campsite. You got this terraced over the lake, but you got to boil your water for 2 minutes. Isn't kind of that a little bit of a downer? I kind of feel like the air coming out of the tires a little bit here with my listening audience. It's like, Dean, you're showing us a great campground, and now you ruined it. There's a boil water notice. Now, I kind of look at this. They've done it on the surface. It is gorgeous. They take care of the campground. They've got irrigation for the trees to keep it. If I go back a slide here, you can see that we're in a desert, but look at these trees, right? They use lake water for irrigation, and the well water actually comes from the drinking water comes from a well water, which is right near the lake. It's an infiltration well. Sorry about background noise. I got somebody cutting the grass here right beside my campsite. But you can see how the vegetation here is just amazing, and and the lake and everything else. But what a damper when you get that sign. Even to brush your teeth, as I said earlier, you have to boil your water for 2 minutes because there is coliform bacteria in the water. Now, I want to throw a question to you guys, and you can answer it, in 15 minutes when we come to our Q&A part. How do you suppose we should evaluate this? Do you think asset management would help here? I didn't have enough time to dig into the records here at the campground and look at actually, in terms of the reservoir, how deep the well is. There is no treatment, I know, on the system. But, is there a case to say put treatment on, maybe look at the reservoir, in terms of, is there areas can we improve on it? Maybe there's some infiltration coming in for potential contamination into the reservoir. The reason I'm saying reservoir, I don't know for a fact, is from my many inspections, the weak point was the storage. It wasn't so much the pumping, was the storage. Could be the well too. Those are the two vulnerabilities right there. But again, I want to hear your thoughts on this particular example I'm sharing with you when we come to the Q&A part of the presentation. Because again, you got this great, beautiful campground, and then we got a boil water advisory. Why does that have to exist? If we plan this out properly. So here's what number you're probably looking at here: funding and long-term planning, capital renewal, reserves, and rate structure. So turns large, yeah. So if we're looking at instead of a one-shot cost reactive approach, why don't we plan this out over several years? For example, if a pump cost, and I'm just fictitiously pulling this out here, we're talking a larger system, right? $100,000 pump replacement. Again, that's going to be installation. That's the pump, the crane, getting access to the well house. I'm gonna cost it out over 10 years. So I'm looking at about $10,000 to put aside for this pump. And again, this is labor costs. This is my contractor. This is everything, right? $10,000 a year is a lot easier to digest than $100,000 right away, right? So this is where my reserve funding comes into. What are my major components of my system that I have to look, down the road, because it's got a lifespan? And say you get to year 10 in this pump, for example. Say you get to year 10. and you looked at it, you've maintained it, your best ability, and it's still operating. It's still working great. You know what? Maybe I can squeeze another year on this one, but I better start maybe, getting that new component ready, right? Maybe I'm putting a down deposit on it. Maybe I get ready at my vendor, that's available, that I can get it, within a day or something like that. To put it on a lot of people say to store it on the shelf and wait. I mean, that would be the best option, but it cost wise, someone's going to say, well, it's not really cost effective. Let it sit on the shelf, but that's not a bad idea. If you got an emergency, boom. I planned it out, so it shouldn't be reactive. It should be more proactive. Base the schedule on condition rating and expected remaining life. As I was just saying, I got a little firmer use on it, but I budgeted. I got my budget. That's great. So when it does, and just before there's telltale signs of this pump failing. But it's still running. I'm going to actually be proactive, and I'm going to start playing and replace it, 2 months from now. I'm just going to do it anyway. Cause we had somebody come in, they looked at the pump, they going, you know what? It's showing its age. You've really got good years out of this thing, but you know what? My expert opinion as a pump repair guy or pump maintenance guy, or pump replacement guy, I'd say replace this, in the next couple months. Okay, let's be proactive. Let's get it in. Boom. We're never going to get any downtime. That's being proactive. Again, update your assets annually as you go along, because information is always fluid and it does change. I use the pump scenario a lot, I know, and sorry, some of you might have reservoir situations that are kind of in it, their lifespan, their tanks, it could be something like that. Maybe your chlorinator is, maybe your chemical feed pump is kind of on its legs. I would just have a one on standby ready to go, because to me, that's a less expensive asset to have on standby ready to go, right? Having a reserve fund, money set aside specifically for future asset renewals, I was referring to here. Contribute a set amount annually based on your capital renewal schedule. Avoid scrambling for emergency loans or special levies. We want to try to set this up beforehand, before this happens, because I get a better deal really on a loan if I get a loan right at lower interest rates, as opposed to emergency. Well, we give you a loan, but it's going to cost you this, right? So being more proactive is a way to do that. I'm going to share some examples as we get through the next few slides here. Strata corporations in BC are legally required to fund reserves this way. Okay, it's in the law. If you're in a strata, it's a strata board, everybody's responsible. You're all part ownership anyway in a strata. So apparently your funds can't fall below 25%, right? You have to have, I'm just looking under the Strata Property Act. Stratas need a depreciation report every 5 years, gets to government, with a 30-year financial forecast and a minimum reserve contributions if the fund falls below 25% of the operating budget. Again, this is all in the strata requirements. Municipalities, they will have a similar system set up. Again, they're not legally required, but they will, a smart municipality will have reserve funds, so that they're not scrambling and saying, oh, guess what, taxpayers, we're going to have to raise your your property tax by 10% this year because we unforeseen circumstances. Where did we hear that before, right? Cushion the load over the years and doing proper planning. But when you come to small water systems, you actually have, you got stratas, and you also have private owners. So the owners are well, I'll get to that one sec here. Sorry, I'm jumping ahead here. So the rate should cover the full cost of the service. It includes your operational maintenance and renewal and reserve contributions. You have to factor in the full life cycle cost. Many small water systems set rates too low to fully fund long-term renewal. How many of you out there that have small water systems, that you own them? You're probably one of the operators, or sorry, the owner, operator, or maybe just the owner. And you're kind of looking at this, well, if I raise the rates, people are going to be unhappy with me. Well, if we explain to our users, you're the owner, it's fully on your shoulder to raise rates. As long as you're, and explaining to the users of it, look, I've got, and this is where the asset management comes into full play, is if you explain to them, I've got an aging system here. We got a pump that's ready to you know, to pack it in the next year. I've got to upgrade the reservoir. I got to update my water treatment. I got to add a water treatment because I don't have one. It's gonna and cost it out. You say, hey, it's gonna cost this. So I'd rather do a little bit increase of our rate structure here, you know, a little percent increase over the next, you know, 5 years to cover this cost instead of just giving it to you one bango. Here you go. That's, you know, emergency levy if you're capable to, you know, if you're able to do that. You obviously know your rights as an owner. It would cushion that a little bit if we're able to do a little bit over and you're planning for that future replacement. Review the rates regularly. Don't set and forget. I don't change the rates. Nothing's ain't broken. Why fix it? And we've heard that before, right? And it's broken now. We need the money, and I can't do it. But if we plan for it, yes, we can do it. Modest, predictable rate increase beats a large emergency special levy. Okay, so here we go. And as I mentioned before, mobile manufactured home parks, the landlord park owner is responsible for the shared water system, not individual tenants. They are on the hook. That's where our rates should reflect on small increases to justify the replacements in the near future or in the long-term future. You'd have people, they're going to have people griping anyway. You know, why are we, you know, I got to pay more for groceries. I got to pay more for gas. Yeah, those are all legit issues. But when it comes to drinking water, I want the best water for you. And you know what, here's my costs they're going to be, and I've done my asset management. It's going to cost me this for future replacement, but this is the betterment of our community right here. You have a better system and better use of water, and we're going to get us off this damn boil water advisory that we've had for a long time. It's going to be far better. Tenants are only responsible for damage and they're personally caused, not wear and tear. So if a tenant damages something, you know, then you obviously an owner, you can go after that. Strata Corporation, I say there, that's all a part, every part owner on that one. You have a strata committee. Just always check your specific tenancy agreements or strata bylaws for details, right? I'm just talking high level here about opportunities, potential opportunities. Okay, and the other thing is what I'm going to share with you now is I'm going to get into some possible avenues for you to take where it can be proactive in moving forward in our conversation here. So the biggest thing is your bottom line here is you want to be in compliance. You know, it's not just, hey, we got to follow government legislation, the Drinking Water Protection Act and regulations, you know, keep those drinking water officers happy. And no, it's nothing about keeping the drinking water. It's keeping your customers happy. Always think about your customers. It's provide the best supply water that I'm capable of doing and safe, right? That's why I want to stay on the right side of the rules. So staying in compliance with the BC Drinking Water Protection Act and regulations. Now, if you're listening from other provinces, I'm sure you have similar rules and regulations in your neighboring provinces or outside the region. And these are just some of the excerpts from if we're just talking about the BC Drinking Water Protection regulations. A small system is defined as serving 500 people, serving up to 500 or less in a 24-hour period. So that would be fine as a small water system. If you're more than that, then you'd classify it as a bigger system. Obviously, requires a valid operating permit, water quality testing. Yes, that's required in the legislation. The good thing is you don't have to pay for these tests. This is all covered from your local health authority. You just got to get the samples in. Follow with your drinking water officer. You know, you probably have set sites where you sample. That's great. Get the samples in within 30 hours max, but they preferred within 24 hours in a cooler with ice packs. Get them into your local health unit or the courier service, however you're set up, right? It's important to have information, even if you're still on boil water advisory. It's still showing, right, our results as we go through this continuum of getting off that boil water advisory. And also, you're required, if you're under the BC rules, is an emergency response plan. Again, wouldn't asset management plan try to help out in this area? Knowing what you have, right, and what I can do in an emergency, right? The more information I know about my system, the more intimate information I know about my system, it's going to be a lot easier, way easier. You just even draft an emergency. There is templates out there if you haven't done an emergency response plan. You can work with your drinking water officer as well, but even on the website here that's sponsored this webinar, we'll have, I believe there is a template. I did see a template on there, how to draft out that. So non-compliance risks public health, of course, advisories, legals, liability. I mean, we want to steer away from this. We want to be in compliance. We want to be in good standing. It's a good selling feature for my water system. Hey, I've got a good water system. Come and join us. These are challenges, and to be fair, there is challenges for your small water system operators and small water system infrastructure. You got limited staff time, budget, technical expertise, aging infrastructure with incomplete historical records, balancing daily operations with long-term planning, difficult in affording large capital upgrades without outside support. I get it. I mean, these are what comes up with small water systems, and you're probably going, yes, Dean, you're pointing at the screen. That's exactly my issue. But really, when you go back to take little steps, start with an asset management, review what you know, write it down. Doesn't cost anything to do that. At least we're starting to know what I've got, just so that I can use as a premise as a business case to move forward. That's all. And I can build my response planning. I can make it a lot easier, and it shows you're making effort to move forward. Even though I haven't spent any money on it, at least I'm making effort to move forward, to look at my vulnerabilities that I have, and I'm costing them out, and I'm identifying my assets and what condition they're in and how many years left I've got, right? That would be a great business case. So for common problems, document the issues immediately, what, where, when. As I mentioned, your reservoir is aging out, it's leaking, the hatch doesn't secure tightly, we've got intrusion of surface contamination into my reservoir. I mean, if you look around, and I used to say this when I'm out in the community doing field work, is that you look around, you can see that there's a lot of wildlife out here, and birds are considered wildlife. What do birds? They walk all over your reservoir, right? And they poop, and guess what's in their poop? And people don't, until you actually look at, I have a background in public health. So all birds in their digestive tract carry salmonella. All birds, not just chickens and turkeys and eggs. We're talking geese, ducks, quails, pigeons. They poop. The rain washes that water into your reservoir, and you're going, oh, why am I getting bacteria contamination? Gee, well, because of birds, wildlife. All right. So we gotta secure that system. Assess the safety risk, contact your drinking water for guidance, apply temporary fixes, maybe a better rubber seal on the hatch. Maybe that's a starting point. Doesn't cost me a lot. Update your asset inventory and renewal schedule afterwards. So what about resources? Where can I get some help? Well, a lot of the points I've got listed right here are mainly for municipality, villages, towns. You're going to go to them. I tried this before. They only give me grants to a community or municipality that has taxes, that taxes the residents, and they do that way. But if you go to the Water BC, and I've got the link right here, you'll pull up their website, and guess what? They focus on small water systems. This is a voluntary nonprofit organization. Wow. And access to funding. They can guide you a little bit. There's no guarantees, but at least you have an organization called waterbc.ca. They're based out of Victoria, from the University of Victoria. And just go to their link, waterbc.ca. Read through it, reach out to the contacts there, and just explain what you have. And guess what? If you did an asset management plan and you did some homework, it makes it a lot easier for them to understand more about what you're dealing with. And if you look closely here, I'm just drilling in more into the report here. Securing a loan. Certain water organizations may borrow at competitive rates with lending institutions. They've kind of got the guidance here. I know those other links I just showed you not going to really help you, but here at least we have some hope. Obtaining a grant. Go to this site. This is one that came familiar to me. And again, but talking to the representatives, and again, it's a volunteer organization. This is just key resources and guides, which we do have, and we'll post it in the link afterwards in the webpage on the chat. So just wrap up. Start small. Build or update your asset inventory this month. Like, just start, right? Identify your top 5 critical assets using the risk matrix. Okay, if something fails today, how's it going to impact my users on the system? Estimate life cycle cost for at least one major asset. Do it for one. Don't have to do it all. Just start with one. And I'm really encouraged to hear your Q&A starting, I guess, in the next minute or so as we bring this to a wrap and open up the floor here. So thank you for listening over the hour, and I hope I provided some guidance or assurances, or even just some hope for those that feel frustrated out there operating small water system, just to start small and start doing a record and inventory. So with that in mind, I'm just going to go back to Dan. Thank you, everybody, for listening.
All right, thank you very much, Dean. That's some good information for new operators, and it's a really good reminder for us old operators out there too. So we're now going to open the floor for questions. If you can put your questions into the chat, and then I will read them out to Dean as they come in. Hillary shares, a challenge we all have as public servants is the capital, basically trying to save money for a rainy day.
Yeah.
How do we convince decision makers to collect and spend more now so that the infrastructure lasts as long as possible, and that there's funding for replacement when needed? It's really hard to convince taxpayers to pay more now for something that they could get in the future.
Yeah, that's a very good question, and I'm not surprised that came one of the first questions on the screen, and it is difficult. I mean, we're all strapped. I mean, who hasn't looked at inflation costs to our own budgets, right? But when it comes to drinking water, I think everybody agrees that that's an asset that it's very important to me and my family and my health of my community. As an operator or as an owner of that asset, it's if I do a little bit of work and show why I've done my homework and where it's potentially failing me in the next 5 years. If we can do a little bit now, it's going to be less of a burden. Now, there is some hope with that link I provided, just from guidance for grants, and also some fundings at low interest rate. But as more people look into it, and actually, if we sell this to our users of the importance of maintaining the system, I think it's a starting point. Is that the best answer? No, but it's a starting point. And I think that's what will help, because I've heard that same question come up many, many years. And, where's the money? For capital improvements, right? But as owners of those systems, we have to show where our needs are.
Perfect, thank you. The next question I have is, what is the average lifespan of a drilled well in the Southern Gulf Islands?
Oh, Southern Gulf Islands, gorgeous area, by the way. I love the Gulf Islands. Yeah, you know what? That's a difficult question really to get into, and it depends who drilled the well and when it was drilled. And if a well is drilled today with the standards required under the Ministry of Environment of proper well sealing and everything else, I would say that was a well-developed well, probably going to get more lifespan versus something maybe in the older days when it was drilled and there wasn't oversight. But having said that, there's still some good production wells out there, and they're still operating after 20, 35 years. But a well driller would be the best one to ask that question. So much more lifespan. And if you happen to have a well log of that well, that's like doing our investigating into about the well when it was constructed, could be helpful to a well driller to give you that information.
Beautiful. Is it practical to include current replacement values in an asset management spreadsheet?
Yeah, you can do that, but again, going to the future, you'll have to think of inflationary costs as we know as well. I mean, remember before COVID, there was certain costs in buying pipe material. Now after COVID, it just seems like they've escalated. And that's why it's good for people that are into accounting, or people into looking at inflation. How much should I add on every year for inflationary costs? That would probably be the best way to do it.
Okay, next question we have is about the strata limit of 25%. Is that of the capital assets budget or an operating budget?
Yeah, I'm not an expert in there. I was just pulling from the strata information. I would go to those documents. If you're part of a strata council, you'll have those guidelines or requirements under the law, and it'll be more clear on that for that. But I do know you do have to have a budget for capital replacements. Anybody that's lived in a strata knows if your roof is gone, what happens? Everybody's on the hook for how much? Shared costs. But again, there is some money in the budget as well too to help offset those. But again, looking at your strata requirements will be helpful there.
Okay, there's a comment here. As I recall, the issue with the NOLPP is that the nearshore well is unconfined and goody. IHA likely requires a permanent BWN because there is no filtration.
Are you talking about boil water advisory because there's a shallow well intrusion, right? Because of surface water. We consider that a shallow well source or shallow water source because it's intrusion. Again, every site has to be evaluated, and that's where you bring your drinking water officer in and go with them while they're doing an inspection and reviewing that information. That would be a call of the drinking water officer to designate as an agouti, groundwater and direct influence, for example, or groundwater at risk containing pathogens.
All right, Jim shares the water comptroller required a 2% per year of the capital construction cost for replacement. This is a simple 50-year lifetime on a straight line replacement. So we use 2% of the issued cost of the water system into the annual capital fund.
There you go. There's an example of adding that in annual increases, and it has support from the ministry. So that's great.
Kalpna shares, thanks for this, Dean. A big issue with small system owners a big issue that small water systems owner have relate to the calculated and appropriate rate structure. Maybe there should be a follow-up webinar about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a good topic to explore in terms of rate structure, for sure. Good point.
Yeah, just some addition to that, an appropriate rate structure that allows for savings for any future repairs, replacement. Okay, we seem to be slowing down a little bit on questions. We'll give it a minute here and see if anything else comes through. And there we go. Bruce asks, how often do you recommend a system and infrastructure assessment by a professional consultant be completed? Like every 5 years?
Yeah, you know what? Even before even answering that question, I look at it, if we do asset management review ourselves, right? You got a small water, I'm just assuming you got a small water system, X number of connections. Why not just do it yourself and save some money from hiring a consultant? The more information you have, then you can share that with your drinking water officer or somebody else, maybe on one of these links that we'll post in the chat here, and just kind of get some feedback that way, as opposed to full, unless you're required from the local health authority to do that, doing an assessment. You're being proactive by just doing your own assessment.
All right, thank you. Arnold shares that UBCM and the province are working on a publicly accessible database for infrastructure replacement values regionally. More details to come as the project progresses.
Okay, well, there's some encouraging news.
Yeah,
yeah. You know, and you know what? I hope the caveat to that is that it can relate to all systems, not just the large municipalities and towns and everybody else that pay property tax. Maybe there's going to be something for the smaller guys.
Okay, I'm just waiting on some more questions here. And yeah, as a note to Arnold there, if you can keep the online help center updated, we'll share those resources as well.
For sure. Absolutely. I have to say, Dan, over my years of doing field inspections when I was a drinking water officer, you know, as you know, and the similar frustrations that come still coming forward as we're hearing here about capital improvements and getting the money, and I know what I have to do, right? I found that the systems that I worked with that did take an inventory of what they had and shared it with me, I think in one particular case, this particular small water system, it was a treatment center in a building, a couple residences and a shallow well. Obviously, you need new water treatment because it's surface water, right? And I said, well, and they went over and they explained what all the components they had, the pump and everything. I looked at this thing and I said, why don't you get a cost on a chemical feed pump with a chlorinator, because you got storage. And he did that, and he looks, oh, it's less than I thought it was. And guess what? He went from boil water advisory to a really excellent system. He got removed from that advisory because he did a little bit of homework, figured out the cost. It was within the budget, and they did it.
Just by taking that step and not assuming that it's going to be way too expensive.
Yeah, but I wouldn't understand his system unless he shared with what he knew about it. That helped me.
Yeah. Okay, it looks like we're just about out of questions here. So I just want to say to everyone, thank you for attending today's webinar. Next, you're going to receive a webinar evaluation, and we sincerely welcome your feedback. Your thoughtful and constructive input plays an important role in helping us enhance the quality of this website and ensures that we can continue offering content that is timely, relevant, and responsive to the needs of the small water systems in BC. If you have any follow-up questions, please email the online help center and we can pass that along to Dean to get some information passed along to you.
Mm-hmm.
Slides and the video of this presentation will be posted to our website in the next couple of days. Your CEU certificates will be emailed to you within a day or so. Please ensure that you save them, as we're unable to reissue certificates. And also, don't forget to sign up for our next webinar that's coming up in September on the 22nd, and it's going to talk about understanding disinfection. So again, thank you all for attending. Thank you, Dean, for this great presentation today. It was good information, and I think everyone will get something out of it. And thanks everyone for attending. We'll talk to you later.
Yeah, thanks everybody. Really appreciate it. Yeah, thanks for listening.